Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to give an article titled, Overcoming the Bitterness That Is Middle-Aged Dating. And guys, this article is written by a woman, and she's obviously middle-aged, or at least middle-aged in her opinion. And she's back on the dating scene, and let's just say it's not exactly a whole lot of fun for her. And I'm doing this, guys, because, I do a lot of videos where situations where a man and woman, they're married, and then she ends up wanting a divorce, or wanting a break, or separation, or something. And pretty much what goes on, which a lot of you guys are aware of in the stories, articles, all that I go over, or maybe you experienced this yourselves, as the woman goes out there and essentially tries riding the carousel, but eventually she comes back to the guy, realizing obviously that wasn't what it was cracked up to be. And sometimes the guys take them back. Other times the guys are like, no way. Not a chance in hell. And they cry and carry on and over again. Rinse, recycle, repeat. Well, I found it very funny how it's almost been encouraged nowadays for the way that gals can feel empowered, as if they break up with their guy to go be free, and you get the point there. Or request open marriages, open relationships. I mean, we are in, as I said before, in Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0. Nowadays, it really is. But it's funny when I read these articles about them from a woman's perspective, complaining about how bad it is out there, and here talking about the bitterness of middle-aged dating. Because, it goes, both men and women say it sucks, and it's a mess. But anyhow, kind of funny when you hear this, about, especially from the gals, are the ones that end the marriage because everything wasn't 100% perfect as she felt it should be, or isn't what she felt she was entitled to be. So I'm going to go out there because I'm such a catch. I'm so beautiful. I'm so in demand. I can get any guy I want, blah, 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 and replace this horrible husband I have. And then they find out, well, it's not that easy. And by the way, as the older they get, on the totem pole, when they're younger, they're high in the totem pole because of looks, because that's the number one things guys go for. But as women get older, the looks fade. And they go down on the totem pole. Meanwhile, guys, we rise on the totem pole with our focusing on our purpose, becoming more successful men, bettering ourselves, blah, blah, blah. In fact, the men's, supposedly what I've read many times, it's considered to be that a man's peak, his prime, is 50 years old. So that sounds cool to me because I'm almost 44. It's a little hard to believe 50 is the prime. But anyhow, kind of goes for this, guys, is an entertaining one. Again, the title is Overcoming the Bitterness That Is Middle-Aged Dating. Or, I never tried to convince a guy to clean out my roof gutters. Whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. If I could describe middle-aged daters in one word, it would be bitter. And that bitterness is destroying our chances at finding love. Well, are you that way too? Because if you're that way, you can't point the finger at everybody else. Let's start with the origins of our resentment. For many of us, it began with the very event, usually a death or divorce, that caused us to be single in the first place. We never expected to be in that situation at our age, and we're still in mourning for our past lives, or at least our idealized versions of them. Keyword idealized. I gotta say one thing, guys, about the whole middle-aged dating thing and all that. It's a different ballgame if you had a couple, they were married together, and they had a good thing going. They were really happy, in love, and one of them died relatively young. Okay, that's a different situation than a gal who was with a guy and he just wasn't quite good enough and she kicked his ass to the curb, and that's different if one of the spouses die. So I want to make that clear. She says, as we set sail on the murky waters of adult dating, we feel our fate has already failed us. We assumed our lives were settled, only to discover our partners weren't who we hoped they were. Or perhaps they had the poor taste to die prematurely. That's kind of mean. So even as we push off the dock, we are coming from a place of abandonment. Our bitterness only deepens when we go online to find ourselves adrift in a haphazard culture of disposable people. We go from being the one to becoming one of innumerable seekers in an impersonal, sometimes hostile environment. We're subject to fake profiles, false representations, self-delusion photographs, and for women, allegedly playful S-word innuendos, which come across as the grape culture. All right, here she's talking about fake profiles, fake representations. Yeah, dudes do that, but who also is quite fake on profiles? We all know this. The gals. I mean, how many of you guys have ever been on met a girl online, through dating app, saw her picture, and then you go to meet her and realize that she looks about 10 years older than the picture, about 20 pounds bigger. The picture has like her head, and from a certain angle, she's looking good. But then you meet her in person, it's like, whoa, it's like a hippopotamus on the bar chair there. So for you guys that date and do dating apps, make sure you see lots of pictures from different angles and all that. I want to point that out. Some people do not send unsolicited photographs of body parts. By the time we do meet real, potentially sound individuals, we're already leery. And each time one of our prospects disappoints us, we become that much more disheartened. Until eventually we see our date as probable losers, siphoning off the remaining minutes of our lives rather than joyous additions who might brighten them. Well, she's clearly had some very bad experiences, but a question comes to me is, what are her expectations going into this? What does she think she's going to get out of this? How does she see herself? Because if she's someone that sees herself as this great catch, and she should have dudes lining up down the street to go out with her, and every dude's supposed to be, 6 feet tall, 6-figure income, 6-pack. Not necessarily that way. And if they're not that way, well, they're a bunch of losers wasting her time. We know it won't work anyway, so our efforts become virtually non-existent. It's as if we're at war with our own desires. We might want a relationship in theory, but we're mixed in pessimism. Well, maybe she's still obviously upset at whatever led her to being single, middle-aged, with a divorce or death of a husband. Maybe she doesn't want it to work out. Maybe she hasn't spent enough time mourning, if you will, moving past the divorce or the death of her spouse. Some people rush into things because they can't be alone, and they're just wasting their time as well as other people as well. And in this case, making her situation worse. She says, nobody's good enough, and now she kind of self-sabotages. In short, we are afraid to become invested. Unfortunately, our discouragement can render us unattractive. Back when I was dating, I was surprised at the number of guys who chose to spend our initial meetings going through a linear of terrible first dates and online agonies and failed relationships. And oh yeah, did I want to meet up again? No, I didn't. Yeah, that's something people do. They talk about all their bad experiences online dating and blah, blah, blah. That's not a very good way to go. That's negativity. That's going to turn somebody off. And guys do it, absolutely, but so do women. It's like, talk about something fun and enjoyable, not your bad experiences. What does it say about you? Apparently, they enlisted me to reassure them that they were indeed normal in a world gone mad. But it seemed like they actually wanted to get to know me. They were busy dissecting their own histories, as if wondering, what did I ever do to deserve this? Well, she certainly can pick them. Is she trying to say they're all like this? Come on here. Perhaps we keep our prospects at a distance because they have the power to reject us. We're afraid of putting ourselves on the line only to be told it isn't enough. You aren't enough. Or even worse, opening ourselves up to someone to only have them disappear on us. With no shared histories, no accountability. No accountability? Are you really going to say that? After a few desertions, we might become quite bitter indeed. So again, it sounds to me like she's setting things up. Setting herself up for failure. Immediately assuming that just things aren't going to work out. It's not a good way to go. So obviously, you can see why she's talking about bitterness as dating. But our bitterness, there you go, but our bitterness is causing us to self-sabotage. We already know it won't work, so if we don't try, we don't even try. In preparation for failure, we offer so little ourselves. It's interesting hearing her take on this, which is not a good one, I might add, because a lot of people go through life like this. They expect to be disappointed. It's not going to work out or not work out the way they want, whatever goal they have. So they just don't even try. Or they just self-sabotage. I know people like this. And these are the same people that complain that they don't have the things they want in life. They don't have the friends they want to have. They don't have the money they want to have. They don't have the job they want to have. They don't have all these different things. It's like, well, what are you doing to get there? Oh, nothing. It's not going to work out. Well, of course, with that attitude, nothing's going to work out. Same thing can go for dating. So she's saying this, obviously, a miserable situation, dating middle age. Well, look, yeah, of course, not every dude you're going to meet is going to work out, but going in with this attitude, come on here. And now your actions are going to make dudes not want to date either. And a lot of guys watching this aren't going to care either. But, again, this is why I got to laugh because, again, a lot of these gals that end their marriages for really stupid-ass reasons. or because they want an open marriage, open relationship, and they see what's out there. They have this idea it's going to be so great the way it's put up to be, or they're going to be so desirable, and then they see this. So they ought to think twice sometimes about ending something that with a pretty decent guy over just stupid shit. Or be a better wife. How about that? She says, it all comes across as anger. I'm reading a fascinating book called I Don't Want to Talk About It. Overcoming the Secret Legacy of Male Depression, which says, warning, gross simplification, that in our society, women are raised to pull pain into themselves. We tend to blame ourselves when things go wrong. Men are socialized to externalize distress, so they blame their pain on having been unfairly treated. Actually, kind of sounds like the opposite to me. That's what I think the reality is. They tend to be insensitive to their part in relational difficulties and not be in touch with their own feelings and needs. But while the capacity to externalize pain protects some men from feeling depressed, it does not stop them from being depressed. It just helps them to disconnect from their own experience. Well, whatever, lady, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about dating in your midlife. I think that externalization fuels some of the anger I received in response to my earlier piece about my search for a grown-up middle-aged man. I'm guessing some of the guys who commented were still upset over past relationships, possibly the one they thought would last forever, but ultimately disintegrated. Well, define grown up. Is that in terms of maturity, or is it also like where he is in life? How much money he has, how much money he makes per year, things like that. It's an important thing to bring up. Did an article earlier about women, how 35 years old, it's very hard for them to date when they're 35 and up and find a good man, quote unquote good man, and a bullet. And I kept saying, well, define good man. And we all know what that is. And is there any wonder so many are alone? He says, maybe in their prior lives they planted daffodils and took out the garbage and listened to innumerable stories of bad days. But despite their best efforts, it all fell apart. And maybe they never really understood why. So now they're never going to do that again. And they're not too crazy about women who seek a traditional gentleman and a clean patio. Mad power washing skills is a plus. Well, I have news that traditional gentlemen are an endangered species, because more and more guys have woken up and realized that if they treat a gal on a date like a traditional gentleman would, like some areas like maybe opening a door for her, opening the car door, pulling out the chair, paying the bills. There are more and more women out there, particularly the younger ones. I'll bite a guy's head off for that because they're effeminists and they feel like that's an attack on them and all that. And it's ridiculous. Or guys, they behave in a gentlemanly way, so to speak, because of course that's how they were raised, or it's what they have observed in movies and TV. And the women perceive that kindness for weakness. And they then dump these guys for the guys that don't do any of that. Even though the same women say they want a gentleman. So you can see the confusion out there, why guys are just like, I'm not going to act like a gentleman. I tell you guys all the time, don't act like gentlemen. I'm no fucking gentleman. That I can tell you right now. It's like, pull your own damn chair out. You got hands. Open your own damn door. And sure, I'll be happy to split the bill. And by the way, there are a lot of gals out there that will yell at a guy when he wants to pay for the bill. That we should split the bill. I don't need no man to pay for me. Now guys are like, okay, I'll save that $50. So I don't want to hear about this whole gentleman stuff. They're gone. And women killed gentlemen. She says, let's stop being so pissed off at each other. Okay, that's a good idea. Well, let's start with you, honey. You stop being so pissed off, because clearly you are. You go into the dates already with a negative attitude. What do you expect is going to happen? Instead, let's employ Shoshin, the Zen Buddhist word for beginner's mind. It means to approach a situation as if it was the first time, with humility for what we don't know and no preconceptions about what will happen. We need to have hope that we will find love, or at least people we enjoy spending our time with. Well, that's a very good idea, but she hasn't been doing that, obviously. If you go into any situation in life with a negative attitude, it's not going to work out. This, what she's describing here, her shitty dating situation in her middle age, is going to happen. You got to go in there with an open mind, having a good time. Not assume every guy's going to be a jerk or expecting him to be Prince Charming. Not in 2021. That hope comes from believing in ourselves. Personally, I'm thrilled to be called entitled when it comes to dating. I became entitled after several guys kept sniffing around my bikini line while simultaneously mansplaining how my relationship goals were old-fashioned. But all they had to do was leave me alone. Is she being literal here, sniffing around her bikini? I'm not a whole lot in there, but the fact that she says I become entitled when it comes to dating, well, now we're getting into it. Because that's how a lot are, and that's how a lot of gals are alone. Because they're so entitled. They think they deserve this, this, and this. But the question is, what do you have to offer? Oh, well, I have a master's degree. What do you have to offer? Oh, well, I make $130,000 a year. That's great. What do you have to offer? What do you mean what I have to offer? Are you thin? Are you feminine? Do you take care of yourself? You take care of your skin? You have long hair? Are you girly? Are you fun? These are important things. But I have a master's degree. But I have $350K in my retirement account. Are you pretty? Are you thin? Do you work out? Do you exercise? Are you good in the sack? All these things they talk about, that's great and all, but at the end of the day, what a guy sees as a catch are the physical. It is what it is. A lot of people don't like hearing that, but it's the freaking truth. Any guy watching this is nodding his head saying, yes. Women hate to hear that. So you can't go in a situation being very entitled unless you have a lot to offer. And even then, you shouldn't be entitled. To me, trying to talk to someone into bed constitutes the worst kind of entitlement. And it's one of the reasons for my own bitterness. I never tried to convince a guy that in reality, he wanted to be in a committed relationship. And oh yeah, he also wanted to clean out my roof gutters. He just didn't know it yet. Look, talking about getting in the sack, I mean, that's what men want. Let's be honest here. And last time I checked, women want that too. So come on. Why would someone put down a woman for... I couldn't even read what she wrote here. Why would a guy put down a woman for expressing her emotional wants? Wanting things is good. I mean, we're alive. And it requires a measure of self-esteem to believe we can get them. Well, it depends on how many things you want. If you feel like you're entitled to a whole laundry list of things, that's ridiculous. If you have certain things that just are deal breakers, okay, there's a few things that can qualify for that. But for a whole laundry list of things that you want, do you see what I'm talking about, guys? And she wonders why she's alone. And why, and not just her, just in general, so many, and they can't find a good man out there. The demands are through the roof. She feels entitled because in her mind she's as desirable as she was when she was 25 as she is to say 45. It doesn't work that way. Not a chance in hell. And there are damn good looking women in their 40s or 50s. But they got to work very hard at it. But it's not the same as their prime. But I'll act like they're still in their prime. She says, last year I sheepishly told a new millennial friend that I wanted to remarry eventually. I guess I'm not much of an effinist, I added under my breath. But she wisely answered, being an effinist means honoring your wants. So why settle for someone who puts little effort into being with us unless we're given up hope of finding anyone better? If I want to walk down the aisle wearing a bi-level ballerina wedding dress like Stephanie Seymour in November Rain video, who's to say it's too much? Well, I'm going to say that flat out it's too much because that was a video and that chick was a model in her 20s, and you're not. This is a new time as we emerge from our homes, blink into the sunlight, and start meeting people again. Let's put our bitterness aside to start fresh. Let's also be sufficiently entitled to hold out for what we want with enough hope not to sabotage our dreams. Well, at the end of the day, you're the one that you or any other person out there, man or woman, you're the ones that are going to sabotage things if you do that. That's on you. But in regards to the wants and needs and entitlement, I mean, okay, they're deal breakers. I get that. But if this woman thinks she's going to remarry one day and get the guy that's going to have all these things on the list, good luck. There's plenty of gals out there that have learned the hard way, and whether they want to admit it or not, it doesn't work that way. But I do these guys, just these articles, just to show you what's out there, what's the mindset and all that. But flat out, she's admitting it sucks. And so I think a lot of gals that were in marriages that were not that bad marriages, that easily things could be worked on if they actually gave the guy a chance, they wouldn't have to deal with this stuff. But it's been so promoted now. I'll be single, or go for that open relationship, open marriage. It's going to be so easy for you, just like it was in your 20s. No, it's not. These things prove it every single time. And the guys that have been burned by this just sit back and laugh. And again, how many times have I done stories when the gal she ends the marriage, or wants to open marriage, and the guy moves on, and he finds somebody usually younger and prettier and better, and then by the time she comes back, he's like, nope, you had your chance. Anyhow, guys, that'd be going to go over just another example of the times and how these middle-aged gals realize that it's not what it's cracked up to be out there, but a lot of times it is on them and their attitude, how they go into the situation. And that's pretty much an example of life. It is all about attitude and what you put into it, your outlook on things, and so forth. All right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this, and be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.